Hello, teacher friends, and thank you so much for joining on today's episode of the Teacher Vlog. My name is Monica Genta, and I have a very special few minutes in store for you. I've invited my friend Beth Skelton to the episode. She is an expert when it comes to language development in all content areas. If we want our students to master our subject area, part of that is making sure that we master the art of delivering that content. And so much of that has to do with the way that we structure our lessons. Guys, this is a bit of an extended episode, but I promise that you are going to enjoy it and walk away thinking, shoot, those are some practical things that I can try in my classroom tomorrow. And by the way, she totally puts me on the spot during this episode and starts quizzing me about my own content. And I walked away thinking, that was good. That was good. I'm totally gonna use it with my students. Now, I want you to stick around at the end of the episode because I want to share just one more idea with you. But for now, let's get rolling on today's episode. Friends, I am hanging out with Beth Skelton today. She is a dear friend of mine. We have had the opportunity to work with each other for about, has it been 3 years? Yeah. We actually work for a conference series together with a friend of ours, Jack Berkmeyer, and Beth is an incredible educational consultant who focuses on language development, and we haven't had anybody on the vlog who has that area of expertise. So here she is hanging out with us today.
Hey, thank you so much, Monica, for asking me. I'm thrilled to be part of it. And like you said, it's been my pleasure to work with you and with Jack and doing the summer conference series. And so I learn every time I go, and your energy is infectious. So it's really fun to be part of this with you today.
You are always one of those people who I want to eat dinner next to because you're so easy to talk to. And I think that's part of the reason why you're so amazing at what you do. And so you're here to share 2 tips on basically how we can teach language through content. So why don't you go ahead and give us your first tip?
Well, that's exactly what I'm focused on because I know your audience is everything from elementary to middle to high school teachers. They teach all kinds of content areas.
Right.
So I was thinking about what is really applicable to everybody. And so one of the tips actually comes from the Center for Applied Linguistics, and it's one that stuck with me because it's so easy. So let's think about the traditional classroom, and we'll take like a high school 9th grade class, right?
Okay.
And you're starting, let's say, the first chapter in a social studies text, and it's chapter 7. Okay, so it's Monday. We're going to start chapter 7 in the traditional, and think traditional, not old, but traditional teacher's classroom.
That's true.
What do we do on day 1 of chapter 7? What's that?
We probably read the chapter in the textbook.
Yeah, you probably do.
And I bet there's a worksheet for it too.
Well, that comes next,
yes.
Right? You do the worksheet, or maybe you fill out the graphic organizer or something while you're reading the chapter, right? And then at the end of that chapter, because we know how all textbooks are organized, what comes at the end of that chapter? What's the first thing that we have to do at the end of that chapter?
Like check for understandings, review questions. Yes.
Mm-hmm. You got it. So then we answer questions. So first we read, then we answer questions. And then, depending on the classroom and the professor or the teacher, you might discuss it. You might have some class discussion. It might be like a Socratic seminar or some kind of structured discussion. Mm-hmm. And then, if there's time on Friday for that unit in social studies, what might you get to do about that chapter on something on World War II? What might you do in social studies?
Maybe something engaging, maybe an activity, maybe like that hands-on, the thing that kids are really excited about anyways.
Exactly. You might watch the film. You might do some kind of application. Maybe you even do a simulation. You act something out. Sure. So that's the traditional, very, very, and I put it in quotes because I know, Monica, you're way younger than me, but even in your classrooms, my guess is you had that rhythm.
Oh,
Even,
sure.
a few years ago. My daughter is only 20. She went through high school just a few years ago. She had that same rhythm. So I know it still exists.
Yeah.
And it's kind of one of my passions to break that trend. And so this tip is called Teach the Text Backwards. So I'm not asking teachers really to do anything unusual. I'm just asking them to flip the order.
Yeah.
So in your science class, instead of doing the experiment after the reading, you do the experiment first. Then you have all that rich context to talk about it, to discuss it, to have actually answering questions during the discussion. And if you've done a really good experiment and discussion around it, the kids could probably answer all the questions or the majority of the questions that are already in the text, so that when they read the text, it becomes review and support. And so that teach the text backwards is just a mental flip.
Yep.
Instead of the traditional way, you start with the engaging activity. You start with the video clip, not the whole video, not the hour and a half, but like the clips.
It's like it's a teaser. It's like this, like, oh, now I'm excited to learn more.
And I have enough comprehension to understand what's coming.
Yeah.
And then the discussion builds the oral language. So now I'm going to add this like language approach to it. The discussion builds the language that I need. You have your word wall, your word bank, your sentence frame, so that I can actually talk about what we just experienced in the video or in the experiment or in the simulation.
Yeah.
Then we go to questions, and the kids are like, wow, I can answer these questions and I haven't even read the text. It's like they actually are answering from what they know, not just because they did the hunt and find in the text.
Yeah. Because where's the yellow word? The yellow word there. Yeah, exactly.
Bingo. By the time kids get to 5th grade, 6th grade, these middle years, they understand that the first question at the back of that chapter is in the first paragraph.
Yeah.
And that the second, and it's just this hunt and find, and the questions don't tell us anything about their comprehension. And that is absolutely essential for English language learners, is comprehension. So this teach the text backwards, make sure that that's our first focus.
Yeah. I love it. It transformed kids from like playing school, because they know the system, to actually like doing learning, which is totally different. I love it. So flip curriculum.
Just exactly. And not that you're sending home a video, but like you could do it in class so you have that rich discussion. Either way, you could flip it. But I like having the experiment in class. I like having a simulation in class. I like having the hands-on, the manipulative, the inquiry-based learning. I like that in the classroom rather than at home, because there's more guidance available in the ongoing questioning. But other than that, it is a flip.
Cool. And that kind of goes into kind of like the backwards plan for language development. How does that all tie in?
Well, that's actually my second tip.
Yeah.
And so it's great that you went right there. This one, I'm going to do it just on a very focused lesson level. Okay. So I know you've been a middle school science teacher. You're doing that. Let's give me a content of an upcoming lesson, for example, like a one-day lesson. What might be content for that?
Well, my personal favorite, I teach life science mostly, but I think that's something that's applicable to not just science teachers, but really all thinkers, is how we problem solve. So like the methodology of scientific problem solving, I love it. Sometimes people refer to it as the scientific method, but basically how we as scientists dive in to tackle a problem.
Super. So you're going to have your whole lesson focused on that. And the kids might actually solve some kind of problem, and they're going to go through the steps, and then they'll come up with the steps. And they're going to do kind of like a teach the text backwards around it before they ever read about the formalized hypothesis and gather your materials. Right. Before they ever read about it, they've experienced, they've done it. They've done teach the text backwards. Now, to put the language lens on that, I usually ask teachers to start with, okay, let's say we're coming near the end of the lesson, and you're going to either have your kids do a turn and talk and like do a capstone of what they learned that day with a partner turn and talk, or it's an exit ticket just for you as a teacher to say, did they capture the learning? And you're going to have them write an exit ticket. Could you give me like, what would the prompt be for that lesson that you just described on the problem solving?
Yeah. So it might sound something like, list the major steps to scientific problem solving.
Okay, list the major steps to scientific problem solving. Now, I'm going to put you on the spot, but I do this with all the teachers I work with too. List the major steps to scientific problem solving, and tell me the grade level that this might be in.
This is probably something that kids start learning about in upper elementary, but honestly, it's something I'll have a group of sophomores next year, and it will be something that we even review as sophomores. So, I guess my response, if you're going to quiz me, I'll probably give like a traditional 7th grade student response.
Okay, let's go with 7th grade. And that's a nice in the middle, because of in the middle of elementary and high and middle school is your gig. And so what I tend to ask teachers to do when they're thinking about the language lens on this is we start with that prompt, and then I ask them, I would like you to give me the ideal response. Like, this is this star student where they use all the right language. The vocabulary is incredible. They don't do ums and yas and all of that. The likes are gone. It is the beautiful response, or it's the beautiful written response. Okay. I'm actually going to script while you kind of give me what you would love to hear. Okay. And then I'll show you how I analyze the language for it. All right. So you go ahead.
All right. So the traditional first step might be to actually figure out what is the problem that we're solving. So what is the problem? That would need to be asked in the form of a W question, a who, a what, a where, a when, a why, or a how. And that should end in a question mark because we as scientists are asking a question. Then we would want to make sure that we gather sufficient information. Maybe we are doing research. Maybe we are collecting preliminary data. Maybe we are conducting interviews. We're basically absorbing as much information as we can about our problem. Then we develop our hypothesis. We want to make sure that we are creating a prediction statement based off of the problem. So it might sound something like, if we do this, then this will happen because. That's traditionally how a good hypothesis is written. Then everyone's favorite part is we are going to conduct an experiment, some sort of activity where we take our preliminary information and we take our hypothesis and we prove is that right or wrong. Usually in a systematic, step-by-step kind of way. I refer to it as almost like we are a scientist creating a recipe card that could be replicated. Then we've done that. Am I going too fast for you, Beth?
You got it. You got it. Okay. Go ahead and wrap it up, and then I'll show you how I analyze the language.
Okay. So then we are, we're going to analyze the data in order to form our conclusion. And in our conclusion, we must either accept or reject our original hypothesis. Boom.
Awesome. Boom. And so that where you say, this is what I would love to hear, I actually have teachers do exactly what you just did and write it out. And if you do it as a team, so if you've got your 7th grade team, you're going to negotiate like, well, really, you say it that way? Is that how you form your hypothesis? Because tell me again, I miss the hypothesis sounds like.
If we do this, then this will happen because. So it's that if then, that almost like cause and effect, but then also explaining the why. Because. Yeah.
So your whole team would have to be on board that we want it if, underscore, like we're going to set up a sentence frame for that.
Yeah.
So the other things that I heard you do in this is the first step is to, and then you had this kind of figure out. So the framing of how do I want them to list? You did a lot of the first step is then. You didn't do a lot of first, next, finally.
Yeah.
But you might, as a team, decide, actually, I want kids to use different transition markers. And so as a team, you go, okay, let's make sure we've got our transition markers up there so that the kids know that there are different levels of steps. Some other really interesting things that came up when you were talking as far as language, words like conduct an experiment. So when you teach the word experiment, of course, the kids are hearing that. They're going to get the word experiment. But for language learners, they might not know the verb that goes with conduct an experiment. So you're going to get words like do an experiment. It's not wrong. It's just not sounding like a scientist. And so our whole job is to help bump them into sounding like a scientist. So when I have my word wall or word bank or whatever, I'm going to put the phrase conduct and experiment, because those two go together. Another one that you said that again goes together is analyze the data. So the kids, again, they may know the word data because they see it on the paper. That's one of the bolded words in the text. You're talking about data. They see data charts, but they don't know the word that goes with it. Like, what do I do with data? And they'll say, we look at data, we have data, we read data, but the word is analyze. So again, we're teaching the verbs that go with the nouns. We're teaching structures that, how do we list things? Do we list them in some kind of sequential order? And what are those transition phrases that need to go together?
I love
Another
it.
great phrase was conclusion. You said we form a conclusion. Again, English language learners, without that word form a conclusion, might say we do a conclusion. We make a conclusion. We take a conclusion. What goes with it? So we're going to teach it form a conclusion. So when you backwards plan for language, it becomes way more than just vocabulary. It starts to become like the sentence structures, the sentence frames that we might have to focus on. And all it takes is for that science teacher to think, what's the language I want to hear or read at the end? I better make sure I'm putting some of those things on the board. And then when the kids turn and talk at the end, or when they write their exit ticket, you say, make sure you're including this in your discussion or your writing.
It's brilliant. And this is so good, truly, not just for like, you know, English language learners. This is perfect for learners, period. I mean, she's good, right? She is good. That scripting activity is just, it's mind-blowing to me. In fact, in her first tip, I loved it because it is connected to something that I do in my classroom. My very first activity or exposure to a new lesson or to a new chapter, I don't read the textbook. We actually call it the mind-blowing activity of the unit, and we do that backwards curriculum. So maybe you can start calling that in your classroom as well. Now, if you loved what you heard from Beth, you gotta get connected with her. She's very active over on Twitter, or you can connect with her on her website. There are links below. Thank you guys so much for being a part of today's episode. I also have included a link below to my TED Talk. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you've heard me talk about it before, but this time of the year, kids are really kind of checked out. But you know what? We as teachers can't be checked out of continuing to build really strong relationships with them. So if you need a boost and you need something to keep you going, to making sure that the relationships that you are building and ending the year with are strong, check out that TED Talk below. All right, guys, if you don't get anything else done this week, I want you to know that as you walk through the walls of your classroom and into the walls of your school this week, that hey, you've got this.